don't think he would be a person without athletics. I just don't imagine there is Belle Dinning without athletics. Any athletics, whether it's gym, whether it's field hockey, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's ice hockey, it doesn't matter what the sport is. I think without any sport, you would not have the character that you do. I think that you're one of those people that just has to be involved in competition.
I cried.
I was scared. I was really nervous.
Terrified.
Because you're going out at 5 in the morning to play a sport.
You have no idea what you're doing.
And there's all the upperclassmen who know what they're doing, look really cool running on the field. And
well, I knew who you were, and you definitely made quite an appearance when you were out there, because you were basically a natural athlete. You could tell that. I think your frustrations would get a little bit ahead of you because you wanted to be basically perfect or really good at it, and you wanted instant gratification, which wasn't going to come right away. But your determination and your diligent efforts out there were without question noticed immediately by 3 coaches. And it's unfortunate because at your level of entry as a freshman, we don't usually take freshmen on varsity. I definitely know you had a little bit of a, I'm not going to say anger, but an excitement that was hard to contain sometimes. And I think we kind of worked on keeping that in check. But that's something you can't teach. And we didn't want that to go away. We wanted that to stick around because I can't teach somebody or tell somebody to be more excited or more intense. That's just something that you're born with. And it's just it's innate for you. So
Belle came to us as a freshman 4 years ago and was one of the few girls in the program that had played hockey, not girls hockey, had played youth hockey, and had played with boys, had played co-ed for the most part, and so was a competitive hockey player. Like, it was sort of the dream. We're trying to get to the point where we build a program where there's 20 of them, showing up, and we don't have 20 of them. And Belle is one of the few that is a competitive hockey player, and not just a competitive athlete. And so also proved herself freshman year to also need to figure out a way, like most athletes do, to control her emotions. And as a competitive hockey player, one of the stereotypes about hockey players in general, boys mostly, is that they are physical and they sometimes cross the line in the actual competition in the game. And Belle did that in some ways, and I mean that with all the compliments and all the sort of envy, because I wish more kids would play that way and would be on that line, because I believe, especially in hockey, where it's, even in girls hockey where there's no checking, it's such a physical sport and it's such an emotional sport, and it's such a sport where you kind of have to play so hard for 30-second and 45-second and minute intervals, that being on that line is a good thing. And it makes, if you can learn to channel that energy, you can make yourself a really, really quality hockey player, not a girls hockey player, a hockey player. And so for years we tried to do that, not just with Belle, with all the kids in the girls hockey program. I think we got to a point, and Belle was a huge point, a part of bringing the whole program to that point of becoming more competitive on and off the ice, of doing all the little things you would want an athlete to do.
Remember the first game of the season where I was ready to put you in, and I turned and said, I can't put you in right now because you haven't been in practice enough. So that was my first frustrating thing. But I knew as soon as that you had paid your dues, so to speak, or had put in enough time at the varsity practicing and learned a little bit more and had gelled with the girls, it was only going to be a matter of maybe one more game. Impressive was probably the word. You still had a little bit of a temper. I shouldn't say temper, but I loved it. I think it was a ball of fire out there, and your skills improved dramatically, and it was just a natural thing for you to have a stick and a ball. It's rare when you have one of those types of athletes that come out onto the field. So it was exciting for me to see such incredible talent at such a young age. So I was thrilled with that.
Working with Belle for 4 years as her guidance counselor to believe, if we believe in what we believe in as a hockey program and as a guidance counselor, as a coach as well, is that everybody can benefit, but with Belle, that she would be the first to tell you that school was not her favorite thing, that she was as close to needing sports to stay in school as probably stereotypically most, again, we can say stereotypically most girls don't need that, but while Belle was never going to drop out of school, that was never going to happen. But Belle, I think, would be the first to say that she would come to school a lot of times when she didn't want to, because she knew she had to in order to play field hockey or lacrosse or hockey during the winter. And that why do we make kids do that, and why do we believe in that as coaches and a school? That it really, we think it builds character, that eventually you're going to need the school part and the academic part, and the old cliche is you're not going to be a professional, whatever, field hockey, ice hockey, lacrosse player. So if you need those things, and we believe in those as a school, that hopefully you take steps to understand that it's not even a question. You come to school, you get decent grades at least, not just stay eligible, you hopefully get a little better with that, and then it ties together when you're a senior and you're looking at colleges or life after high school, and in our case, when hockey's done, that you have choices, and Belle has clearly gotten to that point where she has figured that out. And again, she'd be the first to say she still doesn't completely love school, but she understands what she has to do to survive in her classes, and then also it has worked itself out that she has college options now.
Your sophomore to junior year, you just kind of took off. I think it was just you decided, this is it. I'm going to take off in this game. I love it. I know the rules. You were leaps and bounds pretty much over everybody else as far as your stick handling and your knowledge of the game. So it was quite apparent and quite obvious that you were going to be the go-to girl, without doubt. You definitely were a role model out there. I think a lot of people strive to be able to handle the ball as well as you, to be able to stick skill as much as you. I think your endurance came. I think your athleticism and your physical condition was just apparent at that particular time and point. You were never exhausted during a game, and there was no need to take you out unless you had scored too many goals, or you might have said one thing too much. But the transformation obviously was intense, because you had gotten a taste of varsity hockey, field hockey, and that's all it took. So I can say, physically you changed as your conditioning changed, and emotionally they were still there, and I didn't want to change them. But I think you started to learn to take those and try to learn when was a good time to say something or when it wasn't a good time to say something. But that's just the competitiveness in you. It was phenomenal, and when you have your last game, which was a pretty devastating loss in our junior year, and you start to look out on the field and try to pick up the pieces from the seniors that are there, and instantly what flashes through your head are who's coming back for the next year. And there were a handful of girls that popped right into my head, which obviously you were one of them. So it was really a great transformation, and at the end of the season it was very clear to me that you had worked your way through a lot of your issues and problems as far as leadership and control and your skill level. So you were chosen without question as a captain potential for the next season, and which inevitably turned out to be that way. So your year, unfortunately, we were ranked pretty much the same, but unfortunately they had 1 point more than we did, and the game was away on turf. Which you are a turf player. You can play both grass and turf, and there's a huge difference in field hockey as far as playing on the grass and turf. And your adaptability is excellent, so I have no problems with that. So we practice a little bit inside, there's no question, because the game's much quicker on turf. And when we got there, it was pretty much dead even, and I was excited because I'm not allowed to. I was just excited because I watched you warm up, everybody warm up, and I thought, this is going to be a great game. And truly it was. Of course, the opportunity arose, and Aubrey took the line and put the ball in the net, which was an amazing feeling to score in a stroke first of all, but to go ahead 1-0 in that game. It was intense. It was back and forth, and they put a ball in the net, unfortunately, to tie the score up, which was 1-1, and which is tough. And then you go into overtime, and you know somebody's got to win now. It's a sudden death overtime, and it's the thought goes through your head, okay, whoever puts the ball in at first is going to be the winner. We played the first overtime incredibly even. It was back and forth, and it was 7v7. Which you go down 4 players, so you're minus 4 players, so that's a lot. And so everybody, including you and Lee and Olivia Ogden, and there's so many different people. Emma, Julia Betancourt. I mean, I'm missing a couple of people right now. Sydney Davies, a few other people that were in and out of the game. You had just played an exhausting 60-minute game, and now you would just were down to your last couple of minutes, and it was just relentless hustle on everybody's part. You were not going to accept defeat. Lee would not want to accept defeat. And, we had our opportunity with about a minute left to go, and one of the players missed an open net, which is unfortunate because that would have put us to the next round. But I think there were 38 seconds left to go in the game, and there was a cross from one of the left wings across the net, and the right wing dove to tap the ball in, and she got it. And unfortunately, with 38 seconds left to go, the ball went in, and all 7 players on our team went down, and everybody else behind us went down. It was a devastating loss, but you know what? To take 2 seeded teams that are very close in seedings, I think 9 and 10, and play that type of a game, that's what you expect when you go to a tournament. And unfortunately, it was devastating for the seniors. Because they knew that was their last game, and very devastating for everybody else. But for me too as well, very devastating because you have to keep yourself together to walk on that field with no tears, to walk up to every single one of those players and give them a hug. But there's no regrets. They played well. They played with everything they had. I mean, exhausted, and it's unfortunate that the score went the other way, but take nothing away from that season. It was all the seniors to be a part of, but it was a great game for the juniors, which was you, Belle, to learn from. So when the next year came around, we were definitely ready and in the mode of being competitive in tournament, which we had to qualify for first.
Would be the first to admit that or to concede that she didn't love the school part of things and didn't completely probably see the value in the school parts, but also maybe also see the value in even some of the basic rules that tie together with that stuff. So the on the ice stuff and the locker room stuff and the 3-month thing in hockey, clearly there's some expectations about showing up at school and getting good grades and being eligible and all that stuff. And we personally had conversations through the years, and when her mom was frustrated at times with what Belle was doing in the classroom, and what teachers might have been frustrated with at different times, and what Belle was frustrated with. And hopefully, as a guidance counselor, but also as a hockey coach, we could tie those things together. And I know Belle personally was always somebody that saw the value in hockey so much that you never had to convince her during hockey season to do what we would consider the right thing. Again, not that she's perfect and was we wouldn't expect that of any kid or athlete or young adult, but that you could have conversations with Belle during the hockey season, and then as a guidance counselor who was also her coach out of season, that hopefully she got something out of conversations that we would have, and I would say that Belle has transformed herself to a point where she is a well-spoken, has her, young person who clearly has a great future and can communicate with anybody, has values that have been instilled by her family, her parents, her grandfather, her, her coaches through the years, that I think she is, well equipped to take the next step in her journey into the college world, but also she has proved herself over the 4 years. And I would say, as examples, Belle would be a kid, if you think of her as an athlete, Lisa would probably say this too, that played the game on on the edge. And while I said earlier that we want 20 of those kids because athletically that's an important thing, and it means you're trying, and it means you're passionate, and it means you're committed to your sport, but it also is a fine line when you're playing on the edge. And Belle would be the first to understand that, probably she took too many penalties at different points when she was younger.
Far exceeded than what I thought it was going to. We lost a lot of key players last year and had to fill in a lot of difficult spots. And we juggled around in the very beginning. I knew we had a strong leadership with you as a captain, Lee Heyman as a captain, Emma Karen and Sarah Paggi, without doubt. There's no question. And all four of those people have that intense athleticism and intense attitude. I think you being the most intense. Worked hard on the game. Off season, without question, going to camps, going to clinics, and making yourself into the player that you are. I can only teach you so much, but I think going off island and going to all these camps and these clinics and just taking it upon yourself to be the better player, without question, showed this year. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that you were the best player in the actual EAC, without doubt. The best stick handle, the best athleticism. Just really lovely to watch. I mean, it was just when you had the ball, we felt very confident, all the coaches, and knew that something spectacular was going to happen with the ball. So when we qualified for tournament, it was great. And one of the things I kept telling you as a team was, we're in the tournament, but we are so far ahead of the game that the more games we win right now, the better chance we'll have of getting a home tournament game, which you always want to get because it's home field advantage. Especially this, wanting to play on our own field, which is grass, as opposed to going someplace else where we would probably play on turf, because we're in the past. We don't have a turf field. Everybody else has a turf field. So we did. We actually won enough games, and there were so many great moments this year and just so many wonderful things that happened this season that it's just too many to even name everything. Between slip and slides and dress ups and bubble parties.
One of the first practices when we were doing running down the field doing different things, you would be so
You
good
get the
at
first one and
so good at it.
And even if you were the first one, you would stand at the end line and cheer for everybody, and
and it was
it's just really encouraging.
And it was so comfortable when you were doing it. It wasn't
Yeah.
like you were
worried or nervous.
Yeah.
You had such a strong stick that it was fun to watch you just go.
Your talent was beyond comprehension. I would say that it was sometimes the most beautiful thing to watch out on the field, between your stick handling, the goals that you scored. Obviously, you can't score those without assists from other people. To have somebody go above 15 goals before the tournament is pretty amazing. That's a lot of goals in one season, and to know that there were going to be more games after that, and you probably putting the ball in a few more times was even more exciting. Our first game was against Mashpee. We actually did very well and handled that very easily. We adjusted some things on the field, and the outcome was obviously that we won, and I knew the next round we were definitely going to get another home game, which was great. And what's really cool about it is that this is a team we drew. The next round was a team that was just 1 point under us, so it could have gone either way. But we had the extra point, so instead of going to Monomoy to play on turf, they had to come to play on grass, which was definitely an advantage for us, because it was a pitted game, because this coach from Monomoy was the coach from Harwich, which is a team that we used to play all the time way back when I was a coach, and she didn't want to play us anymore because we would always give her the good fight. So I hadn't seen her in years and years and years, but she's a coach that is intense, much more intense than I am, and is not really liked by a lot of coaches because she has a tendency to ring up scores 10-0 to 20-0 to 25-0 to pad her team's stats, which is something I would never do. I don't care, if you've got 3 goals, that's great, you're done. We're going to sit down unless we're losing, and then we'll put you back in. But there's no need for that particular type of a score, and it's appalling for other coaches. But she should be embarrassed, and shame on her. But I was excited, and she had some great players. I think that you guys were hyped up, Belle. I think you were definitely the leader out on that field with all the other captains ready to go. I don't think you knew the history behind all that, but it was amazing. I think we scored first, which was great. We did score first. It was 1-0. I'm like, holy gosh, we're ahead. And it was a bloodbath. I mean, we played hard. You could hear the ground shake. You were not going to be beat out on that field. No way. Especially you. And I think you were the one out there. Let's go, you guys. Let's go. I think there was some heated discussion out on the field too between teams, but that's to be expected when you get to a quarterfinals of the states, and then 1-1, and I just knew that, you know what, we're going to end up going into overtime. And I felt good. I think that we're a very good overtime team, which means a 7-on-7 team, because we have really 7 great players that will just go out there and give it all. And so it did. It came down to 7v7, and I took the huddle, and I can remember your face, Belle. It was just like, yep. I mean, you were just... there was no way, and everybody else was the same. And when I put the players out on the field, before I said that, I said, this is the scoop, girls. The first team that gets possession of that ball and goes over the 50-yard line is the team that's going to win. There's no doubt. And it kind of went a little bit back and forth over the 50, but once it went over the 50, I still replay the video and the pass that it was broken up. I think it was by Sarah Paggi, and it kind of got loose. I don't know how you got your stick on that ball, but when you got your stick on that ball, all of a sudden, like, everybody was like, Belle's got the ball, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, it's like she's on a breakaway, and then the next thing I know, you shot it, and I'm like, it went in. And I'm like, oh my God, that ball just went in. And I think I was still on the sidelines while everybody else was on top of you, and I just was like, oh my gosh. And it was packed at that game, packed, and there were people there because they knew of Cheryl. But I think that was probably one of the most amazing moments, and I would imagine for you, probably a moment that you'll never forget in your lifetime is putting that ball in the net. And it wasn't just you putting that ball in the net. I knew it was you, but it was everybody. You could feel everybody, whether they played or didn't play. You could just feel the jubilance out there, and you have to remember that as a player, because hopefully maybe in college you'll get that feeling again. But to put us and advance us to the semifinals of that is a pretty amazing feeling. And I think I smiled the rest of the night and just relived that moment. And we had a young lady get out there. I think it was it Bella Chimes that actually got the picture of your face, which I relive all the time, of your face going, I can't breathe. I'm like, you're breathing, Belle, you're breathing. And I don't think I got there right away. I was still on the sidelines just in awe and just letting you all celebrate.
For
Oh
you
my
guys.
God, your winning goal, like when you had the breakaway.
insane.
That was.
Was it crazy, Haley?
Totally
I
wicked.
cried.
You cried?
We were all. I just remember all the JV. I didn't have to cry. Like all the JV players, we were all like standing on the bench watching it, and all of a sudden you just hear these like high pitched death screams, like somebody was being
Don't
murdered.
do it. Don't show us.
Wasn't gonna.
She was.
Just
You
like
just always my big thing. Like you always pushed us and stuff, and you were the player in the field that Lisa was like, oh, how you play, Belle, and that's what I always heard. So I was like, oh, I want to be like that.
Like the
so.
player that we look up to.
We played indoors and got ourselves ready. I knew they were good. I knew they had a couple of key players. And my goal for that was to take that game to overtime, which would have been my hope, unless we had scored. But as I watched the game start, I said, oh, just let us go to overtime, because they're a very strong team. They were seeded 1. And I knew they had the advantage, number 1, of playing turf, without doubt, and number 2, a home game. And it was a terribly rainy night, but that was fine. And you could see the intensity on everybody's face, but also you could just see that your proud moments. I mean, you guys being proud to be there. It was just your time, your moment. You as a captain should have been so proud to have your team out on that field when the national anthem played and you were lined up in the middle of the field. It's rare. It doesn't happen that often. So the game just was heated back and forth, but they really dominated quite a bit of the game. It was hard. I think they were double teaming you, so you didn't get the ball as much as I wanted you to get, and it was difficult to get you open. So they had your number. They knew that you were the go-to.
It was really good.
Yeah, that was good because like you always like cheered us on and stuff, and like if we weren't like working together as a team, like you told us like
There wasn't a
This is-
moment you weren't like you didn't sugarcoat it about like us working as a team, and you didn't like and you weren't like too harsh though. You weren't like you guys suck, like
When
work harder, but it was encouraging. That's how I describe you as a captain.
when you were giving us like criticism, you'd like tell us like what we did wrong, but then you'd also tell us like you'd be like
what we did right with it.
yeah, what we did like right with it. So it'd be like, yeah, you did this wrong, but you also did like this like amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Even at
That was
captain's practice, like you were always the one to like correct us.
Mhm.
And
like, instead of working on your own stuff, you came over and like
Belle was surrounded her senior year with a handful of hockey players and sailors and field hockey players and soccer players and basketball players. Even her sister is a basketball player, and we never missed a beat with that stuff, with the off the ice stuff, how you handle yourself as a hockey player, what are the expectations as being a part of the varsity hockey team, and how do you carry yourself in school? How do you carry yourself outside of school? What's the commitments during that 3-month season? And from afar, I think people, think we're spoiled because of the locker room and because of what we get as a varsity girls hockey team or a varsity hockey team. But I think it also brings us together and also makes us have to get over things in that sort of environment. And Belle was a huge part of, how do we overcome obstacles through a 3-month season. And ultimately, for helping kids get over things on and off the ice, and believing that sports can be a huge part of it, I think part of Belle's legacy will be that she was a hockey player first, she was a competitor first, but she also bought into what it takes to be a student athlete, in this environment. And so. Oh, it's, she had a checking from behind and got thrown out of a game, and then it carries in an automatic suspension through the MIA, so there was no appeal, there was no nothing, and she had to miss, ultimately 3 games, 2 games after the actual game that she got kicked out of. So it came out to really almost 3 full games, and that was a huge, part of her season, missing 3 games, and it impacted us, because she was one of our better players, if not our best forward, clearly. So, we relied on her a lot, and so we had to have conversations about that. And Belle, I will say the part that we completely got right away was that Belle knew immediately what she had done. I think it all sort of coalesced in her head after being kicked out of the game, that she knew that it was something that just couldn't continue, and she had to pull it together, and she did. And we're proud to say that I think she only had a couple minor penalties the rest of the year, and she was a completely different player from that moment on. And I think it shows a lot about her character and learning from mistakes and learning from things. Not just you talk about that as a guidance counselor, you learn from mistakes in and out of the classroom, social choices, academic choices. But as a coach, you want people to learn from things. You don't have to be perfect, and she learned from it clearly, and it wasn't because we made her learn from it. She learned from it. She knew what she did, and she changed herself, and her teammates all knew that too, which is probably the most important thing.
It was getting tough and stuff. You'd always kind of be level-headed. I know for me personally, when the game's getting tough, I get inside my head. But you always you'd stay calm and stuff, and you always knew what to do.
and help out your teammates.
I think it was in the middle of the season. You had this really nice drive, and I didn't. But I noticed Megan started to drive you, and
When we lost the game in overtime, it was everyone was beating themselves up and crying, and you were there cheer.
focus. It was Steven.
Cheering everyone up and not letting everyone get in their heads.
Yeah, you definitely brought us up.
Even though it was hurting you too, you put your feelings aside and helped everyone else out before yourself.
Yeah. I remember personally when I got my first goal, you were there with me, and I just remember getting it and then turning around and you just being right there and just congratulating me and stuff, and that was just the best moment ever.
And it also having you as a captain like also showed that you were not only really devoted to hockey, but you were devoted to like your friendship. Like throughout the season, we got really close, and you were definitely there to help me through a lot of things.
Like on and off the ice.
Yeah.
That you're gonna look back on it. I mean, there's gonna be, I don't know, you're gonna be thinking about it forever. It's gonna be something that that's gonna stick with you. The people that you play sports with, they're gonna remember it. I mean, all that, you build these relationships on those fields, practicing, putting in the hard work with all those guys, and I think, you know, it's gonna be tough doing it, but definitely when it's all said and done, after you play your last senior game and you walk off the ice or walk off the field for the last time, you're gonna wish that there was more time, that you had more time, and you're gonna cherish every second you spent working on those fields with the people around you.